Welcome back to another episode of Speaking with Gravity, where we discuss mental health and how everything affects everything. I'm your host, Kervin, and today joining me in this discussion will be Joshua, and we have a special guest in Terance. Today we're going to talk about the impact of trauma on relationships, relationship dynamics. So to begin off, before we even kind of dive into defining trauma and all of that stuff, I'm going to allow our special guest to kind of introduce himself so that he could do himself justice, because I can't always do that. So I'm giving way to you.
All right. So my name is Terance Dawkins. I'm a licensed clinical social worker that's based out of Spartanburg, South Carolina, but I also have my license in North Carolina as well. Okay. I have my own mental health private practice in Spartanburg. It's called Missing Pieces Counseling Services. But I also work at a university counseling center in Greenville, South Carolina, where I provide therapy services and outreach to the students on campus.
So what got you, and bring that mic a little bit closer, because I want to make sure the people hear you, especially those in the back.
Oh, yeah, we good.
But what got you into therapy, providing therapy, and also, well, just answer that one first, because I got a couple of questions. But what got you into therapy?
So growing up, I used to see my mom. It's a vivid memory I have of her sitting at a kitchen table. She had her hands in her head, and I asked her what was wrong, and she was just like, nothing, or she didn't say anything. And so as a kid, when something's wrong with your parents. You can just sense it. So in a way, I saw how depression and things impacted her. And then when I got older, I saw how it impacted me. So then it really started learning about myself and how I reacted to different situations. And then I realized that I wanted to help other people do the same thing and realize that they weren't alone. And it became like natural to me. So as far as conversations, and people say it's easy to speak to me, and I always I always wanted to figure out why people did the things that they do, or why they react to different situations. And so I just continued to learn about it, and that's the route that we took.
So you knew this going straight into undergrad?
Well, see, the story about that, in high school, everybody always tell you, oh, you got to graduate, you need to go to college, you got to get a degree, then get a job. That's the route they take. Yeah. They tell you to take. And so I was like, well, I don't really know what I want to do. I tried doing the technical school that we had at my high school. I did automotive mechanic. That didn't work. I was like, well, I'm going to work with computers, because you always can get a job with computers. That didn't work. So
Were you actually good with either one?
Yeah, I like computers. I was pretty good at, and automotive mechanic, I was like, in my mind, I said, they don't really do much, but fix things, change our part. But there's a whole bunch of science behind it too, and I couldn't get down with science. I'm not gonna lie. So those two didn't work out. But I was like, oh, well, I'll be a guidance counselor, because they just help people get through high school and courses and stuff. So I went in as a psychology major, but then took a social work class and figured out social work is more broad. So if I wanted to do therapy, I can do that. But also, if I wanted to switch to a totally different field, I can do that too. But therapy just kind of stuck.
So when you majored, you started majoring in psychology. So is social work actually a major?
Yeah. So social work's a major.
I know you masters, but
so it is BSW, Bachelor's of Social Work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now every school doesn't have it, because we didn't have bachelor's of social work.
We might have had it.
Y'all should have had it. I think y'all do got it.
Because I did psychology and I with it, but not in my career, so I'm not in it now in my career. But I feel like I use it kind of every day. But
it's good to have. Like, I think a lot of the general education courses, some schools make you take like a psychology class or something like that. But I think it's good information to know.
Everybody should.
Yeah, my actual major was psychology. In undergrad, because we didn't have social work, and really, the truth be told, I didn't know what I wanted to do. That was the fifth. By the time I got to that major, that was the fifth time I changed. I changed it 5 times.
I thought my first was gonna be biology. I thought that's what my major was gonna be. Yeah, I thought, man, it'd be great to be a doctor. But hey.
I was never good at biology or the sciences for the most part, even though psych is a science. But
biology was like the hardest course I took in college. Barely made it out, but I made it out.
But you know what's funny is with it being one of my harder ones, I have a lot of interest in how like the brain affects your feelings and your mood and stuff. And it's like now I'm more into reading about it as opposed to when I was in undergrad and I just like I don't want to learn anything, and I didn't want to put the effort forth to try to be good at biology. So I regret that from that standpoint. Now you said something earlier about you saw how it affected you. Like you was talking about your mom and you knew that something was different. And then you mentioned depression and you said you saw how it affected you. Do you mean from that you went, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but do you mean you went through it yourself or how it affected you as a family member of both. Somebody? Okay.
So I say both. I think it didn't start impacting me until like college. Because I think college, and that's why I work at a college counseling center, because that's when I realized you're away from home, you're away from family, you're pretty much on your own trying to figure things out. And I've had, actually, it really kind of started when I was getting my master's. That's when it kind of like peaked as far as like depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And it got to a point where it's like, yeah, man, I can't deal with this no more. So try to do some medication management, tried therapy for probably one session, not gonna lie. And it was just like a journey, and I was like, I just can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this. And I was already, in knowing I wanted to be a therapist, but that just kind of made my story a little bit more impactful, that I can tell clients like, yeah, I've been through some of the similar things, and they feel like they're able to relate to me, because I always believe that clients or people in general just want two things. They want to be heard and they want to be understood. If you can tell somebody you understand, or you're trying to understand, or that you actually listen to them, you'll get a lot more out of them.
Yeah. If I had to sum that up, what you just said in one word, I would say validation.
Yeah.
Being heard and being understood.
Yep.
That's big. So now that we got a little bit about your background, how you got into it, so on and so forth, we're talking about defining trauma. In your words, you see we got that book.
That's a good book, by the way.
What's that?
The book is...
The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah. The body keeps score. It's very
Brain,
easy.
Mind, and body, and the healing of trauma.
Very easy to kind of read and follow. You might have to read it a couple of times. And when I say a couple of times, there are certain chapters I'll go back and look at it. But when we're talking about trauma, maybe I can look it up in there. Yeah, that's what I do. Why you define
It's definitely in there.
But in your words, how would you define trauma?
In my own words, after, I ain't gonna say read the book, because I didn't read the book. I listened to the book on audiobook, because I have a commute to work. But after listening to that book and getting the knowledge from that book, I define trauma as anything that has a emotional impact on you, any event or situation that has some type of emotional impact. But after reading that book, I also include a physical impact on you, because the book describes how our body responds, or our brain responds, with these different areas of the brain, such as the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, and stuff like that. They work together, and the amygdala is the alarm system. So amygdala tells you when something's dangerous, or it's like tells you something's wrong. And then it sends out these different hormones and things to other areas of the brain, which then causes these different physical sensations you feel. And ultimately, as people, we react to the physical sensations, not the event. So you might have an emotional impact, but that comes after you experience the physical sensations that your body displays.
I don't even want to mess with that. I'm looking to see, did I see it, a quick definition, and I don't even want to mess with all that you just said. So how do you see it play out, just quite simply, how do you see it play out in relationships?
Man, that's a big one right there.
Yeah, it's so many different ways you can go with that, right?
In relationships, it's something that I'm studying and, really presenting on is called intergenerational trauma. And I mentioned it earlier, which is the passing of trauma from generation to generations through families and things like that. So the way I see it play out is you might experience something from your caregivers or earlier relationships growing up. And that could be, abuse and neglect. That could be, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, that then causes you to develop a belief about how to interact with the world, how to interact with people. Yeah. And now you carry that belief with you throughout your whole life, which then impacts relationships. So an example could be, I never got my needs, not me personally, but someone could say, I never got my needs met by people I care about. So when you get into a relationship, you're on the defense because you always feel like that person's not going to meet your needs. And when you're always in a defense on a relationship, that causes disruption in the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the awful thing, right? Because you don't have to be the one that's traumatized to be affected.
Exactly. Because your mom could be traumatized, or your dad, or a caregiver, whoever that is. They could have experienced some type of trauma, and that impacts how they interact with you. And now you then take how they interact with you, and you either display the same thing or display the opposite, trying to correct it. And sometimes they overcorrect it in your interaction and relationships. And that's why I call it intergenerational trauma, because it gets passed down throughout generations.
You said something, overcorrect.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more to
overcorrect
to that? Yeah.
So people always say, like for me, if I was to say, when I grow up, I'm not going to be like my father, who was kind of inconsistent with when I was coming up. So sometimes he'd be there, sometimes he wasn't. I'm not going to be that person. So when I grow up, I try to overcorrect it by always being present in my child's life. But now, when I say overcorrect, since I'm always present, since I'm, always trying to interact, always trying to engage, being at everything, I'm not saying those things are bad things, but now I could end up being overprotective.
A helicopter parent,
exactly.
So to speak. Yeah.
So now that's an overcorrection. So you got to find a nice, even balance.
Yeah, and that to find that nice, easy balance. Sometimes I feel like it's beneficial for you to be in therapy to find that balance, for you to talk it out.
Yep.
A lot of times we're just living our life from day to day, and we don't necessarily see things.
Yep.
But what do your therapists do? What we say all the time is that we find patterns, and we're able to identify those patterns, show those patterns to you where you can see, oh, I'm overcorrecting. Yeah. I'm doing too much. What's a way for me to step back but still be present? What's a way for me to balance these things out? Man, I love how you said overcorrecting.
Yeah. And that, like you said, therapy offers a different perspective. And like you said, we're always just going through life and living our lives. I like to call that we're always on autopilot. So we just put things on auto drive, and we don't necessarily realize why we're doing things. We don't realize, what's causing or what's triggering these different things. And one of the big things I try to teach in therapy is creating awareness, not just of your feelings or emotions, or the physical sensations, but really what are you responding to in a particular situation? So if you're overcorrecting, when you think about it, am I responding to, what my child is doing, or am I responding to something that happened in my past childhood? So really taking that awareness and diving deep into your own, history to figure out what am I responding to.
And it's like you got to be able to almost search yourself and admit that you got some stuff going on too, right?
Yep. So awareness, I say awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, and action. That's what I try to teach my clients.
Big four.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to you said acknowledgement?
Yeah, because the first two can be interchangeable, but awareness.
And you do it kind of like in that order? Is what you're saying?
The first two, not really. It depends on what the client is, but the other two, yes. So awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, and then action. Okay,
yeah. That's big. Yeah, I like that.
That's a book.
I like that.
Yeah, right there, man.
Yeah. We'll be looking forward to that book coming out. So speaking to that, right, those four things, what about those people who just say, oh, yeah, this happened to me, but I just moved on. I'm just living my life. I can't get stuck on that one thing, or I can't get stuck on what was absent from my childhood, absent from me for an extensive period of time.
Yeah.
I just kept it moving.
Okay. let's get personal for a little bit.
Oh.
So I'm glad you asked that. I'm in therapy myself, so I'm not afraid to admit it. I enjoy my speaking with my therapist. She offers a lot of a different perspective and have me do a lot of searching inward. But since you say that, like I've said that most of my life, like I've been okay. I'm all right, that my dad wasn't really consistent, and I'm all right. I moved past it. But have I really? Because that's when she. I mean, I really knew that it was still causing me issues, but she kind of really pointed it out. Because, like I said, I started noticing how there was different patterns in relationships. And one of the patterns I noticed is I was looking for my partner to fill a void. Meaning, if they didn't respond to a text message or call, then I would get triggered. And then my response would be, oh, so you don't want to talk to me anymore? Oh, you forgot about me? Stuff like that. And now that language, that's called trauma language. You forgot about me, which now goes back to when my dad said he was going to show up and never showed up. Gotcha. Never called, never responded. So now I'm triggered and responding to him not showing up and me thinking people are not showing up for me if they don't respond or give me attention that I'm looking for. So that's in therapy, I try to look for trauma language. Oh, I feel alone. Oh, you forgot about me. Oh, nobody cares about me. Like just those different trauma languages.
Yeah. Boy, you hitting it. All these things right now.
So let me ask you. So how do you how are you able to say it's from that relationship and maybe not something else that you're not?
Yeah. So I always ask my clients if I hear something like a trauma language sentence, I say, when was the earliest time you remember that? So they could probably start with, last year. I said, okay, what about before that? And we try to kind of trace it back to and have them really think about when they felt this particular way. And now they'll start to figure out patterns from that. So that's like the key question. What's the earliest memory you have of feeling like nobody showed up for you?
It's kind of getting into Adlerian therapy when you start talking about early recollections.
Yep.
But, even beyond Adlerian, right, you got Sigmund Freud, who was focused on your childhood and how it affects you.
Yep.
I have a statement that I say, everything affects everything. That's really true.
Yeah.
From the time that you was born up until now, you have all of these experiences, and these experiences affect the decisions you're making about your behavior, which then influences your emotions, your feelings. And then you can change that by attacking your thoughts. You can change it by just doing something different and seeing how it works out.
Exactly.
That goes into cognitive behavior therapy. But going back to your point, you ask, how do you know it wasn't one of those? Again, we're looking for patterns, right? So in looking for patterns, we're when you get those recollections, those early recollections, but also different things, we're piecing it together like a puzzle. That's the beauty of a therapist, to be able to hear different points in your life and challenging you.
Yep.
Challenging you to think about how this event connected to another event, or even connected to your presence, and maybe even reframing your thoughts as the end result.
It's funny because that's why I named my practice Missing Pieces, because you said it was like a puzzle.
Okay.
And we're trying to put them together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And your practice is called Missing
Pieces Counseling Services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now, so my question with that came from just thinking about, I may have, even just thinking about myself personally, I may have an incident way back, maybe the first incident in my life, that I feel like did kind of have some type of bearing on my behavior now, but then it might have been something like 2 or 3 years after that that had a bigger impact, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's still like a build, it's still, that first experience was still like the first piece to that puzzle, but, just that other experience could have meant so much more to me,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then the second question I asked is, what was the impact? So, all right, so what was the earlier recollection of this instance? What was the impact? People come into therapy all the time and say, I came to therapy because, I don't know, me and my boyfriend broke up, or me and my girlfriend broke up. All right, so and I tell people all the time, people don't come to therapy for what they come to therapy for. You come to therapy because this relationship ended, but that's not why you came. So let's really talk about why you came. Meaning, what was the impact that this breakup had on you to bring you to therapy? Well, I feel like I'm just always going to be alone. All right, now we're going down another
That trauma
road.
language you was talking about, right? Yeah.
So what's the impact? And that's probably a way you can draw out that trauma language.
How long you been doing this, the therapy?
I graduated my master's degree in 2017, started working as a case manager in that same year, so got fully licensed in probably like 2020.
Okay, so
about
3
years fully licensed, but when I was getting my supervision, 2 years before that, so a total of about 5.
Yeah, okay. So, like, as I'm listening to you, if I was looking for a therapist, I would, I would definitely go to you just off the strength of your knowledge that you're presenting just in these short few minutes, and it comes off as if you've been doing it for 10 years, 14 years, 15 years. So, we definitely kudos to you for that, man. And
Appreciate that.
Keep doing what you're doing. But going back, or kind of piggybacking off of something that Josh said and you said earlier, I came across, whenever I'm doing these episodes, I try to go onto social media and connect them to the title, to see if I can find a question that somebody may have presented out there and maybe address it in some form or fashion. But one of the things that came across my timeline was, if you haven't healed, you can't find the right person. Now, let me just say this. I totally disagree with you not being able to find the right person just because you haven't healed. I don't think that it definitely influences it. Mm-hmm. It definitely affects you. But you can find the right person if you're not completely healed.
Can you keep that person?
That's a good
That's excellent. Excellent response. Whether you be able to keep that person out is a whole nother game.
Okay.
But not healing, man, if you haven't healed, it is going to make it more difficult for you to find right people because of your window is dirty. It's clouded by your experiences, your shades that you got on. You're going to look and see people in a totally different manner because you haven't addressed something that severely affected you. That being said, what are your thoughts on that? If you haven't healed, you can't find the right person.
I got another quote for you.
Okay.
If you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you.
Oh, wow.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's a bar.
That's a bar right there. If I could drop this mic, I would. But I heard that quote, and I said, that's so true. Because if you don't heal what hurt you before, the people and things that you encounter moving forward, you're going to bleed on them, meaning they're going to get the reactions, the behaviors, the different emotions that they didn't contribute to. And then that's going to impact how they interact with you. And like you said, if you don't heal, maybe you won't find the right person. Well, I disagree with that too, because maybe that right person will help you heal, right? Not saying that's their job to, but they might care about you enough to help you. But you could also miss out on the right person because you haven't healed, because that person might not want to deal with those different emotions, or they might want to, but how you react or how you come off is just so traumatizing to them and what they bring into the relationship that if it's best for them to leave, or it's best for them to, distance themselves from that. And maybe after both of you do the work you need to do, you could come back later. But so I disagree with that statement because it can go either way.
What are the pillars? Like, if you had to say, what are the pillars to healing? What do you all feel like are the pillars to healing? I feel like one is forgiveness. Whether that's forgiveness of someone else, the person who is involved in that trauma. Also forgiveness, of yourself. Yeah. But what do you all feel like, if you just had to name a couple, are the pillars of healing?
I think forgiveness is a good one because people blame themselves for different situations all the time.
Yes, sir.
People blame other people for different situations. So forgiveness is definitely one, I believe. Another one could be, like I said, acceptance. So we always want to change something. And I tell people all the time when they come to therapy, it's not my job to change anything that's happened or to change you. My job is to try to give you a different perspective. My job is to try to, when another situation that's similar to what you come to therapy for arises, you're able to go about it differently. So you make a different choice. That's the action piece, making a different choice, because now I'm aware of these different patterns, these different beliefs, these different themes. So I think acceptance is definitely one of those.
And just to kind of piggyback off of your actions, I would say commitment. Committing to trying different things. You know, one of the things that's frustrating for me as a therapist is when people come in and we're going over things, and then there's homework time. The homework time is, all right, this is we're going to give you an assignment directly based off of something that you are doing, a way that you're responding. Because in that homework, what we're trying to do is do something different and see how it affects you. See if that can kind of get you out of that same pattern that you've been instilling that's been negatively influencing you.
Yep.
So committing to change, committing to trying different things to see if I can get beyond what's got me stuck.
I like those pillars: commitment, forgiveness, and acceptance.
Yep.
CFA. You have to have acronyms to remember.
CFA.
Chick-fil-A, that's what I was about to say.
Ooh,
Chick-fil-A.
Hey.
Okay.
Come on now.
Well, you might have a word
pleasure.
over there.
Listen, I always tell people, therapy, you don't heal, coming to therapy, you don't heal in that hour we're together. The work comes not in that hour, but it comes with what you do outside. Because what you do outside, if we give you that homework and you're not committed to doing it, you're going to still do the same thing. And so we can't move forward until you do the homework or try something different, so we can see if that will work, or so you can show yourself that something different will work. So the healing, the work comes outside the session, not in the session.
So
I love it.
Josh asked, what could we do to heal, right? In a relationship, I want us to think about intimate relationships now.
Okay.
Intimate partner relationship. What are things? And me and Terance are therapists, so we got an advantage over Josh. But Josh got you got life experiences,
I know people,
right? So based off of life experiences, based off of therapeutic experiences, what are things that you see people who have been affected by trauma do in their relationships? What are some of the things that you see happening? And I'll start it off by saying, putting your guard up. You know, people just, you know, we say that I got my guard up, but there's reasons for you having your guard up. And some of those reasons sometimes are connected to trauma. Some of those is trying to have control, you know, so I can control this situation so that I don't get hurt like I was hurt in the past.
That's it.
And, you know, to that point, you have to work on that. That homework assignment that I'm going to give you is to be vulnerable and to let your guard down, to allow yourself to be affected by the person that you're in the relationship with. I don't foresee a relationship lasting without someone being vulnerable.
Most definitely.
It just I cannot see it lasting. I can't see it lasting.
No.
And if it does last, you're basically roommates.
Yeah.
You're basically just coexisting together. But that being said, people putting their guard up is one of those things that I see, and again, it's about control. I see a lot with people who are affected by trauma in relationships.
You right?
I think, what's the question one more time?
What are the things that you see?
Okay. In those
that people do.
People do.
Yeah. Because they're affected by trauma.
I think one thing, making excuses instead of solutions. So So like saying this is just how I am.
Yeah.
You know, I really hate that.
Yeah.
You know, in relationships that I felt like were healthy for me, people really did. People at least said, but you know, I'm gonna try to work on this though.
Right.
And you could see them trying to work on it. You know, and you excuse people for that. You know, you appreciate that.
Yeah.
When somebody's just like, man, this is how I am, or it's like they're not really, not really working with you to understand how their behavior is harming you and harming what y'all have together. That's negligent, man.
Yeah.
It's negligent, and it's just not valuing that other person. It's not valuing what you all have. I feel like
People don't look at it like it's negligent, but it really is.
Yeah.
You basically destroying the relationship. It's like a
Slowly.
house. Yeah, it's just like a house. You got to, when you buy a house, you got to do things over time to keep that house and livable, right? And if you don't address different things, the roof, the side, and if you don't address these different things, it makes the house unlivable.
Yep.
So same way with relationships. If we don't address these things that are affecting our partner, it's not gonna make the relationship livable. That's how we're gonna go our separate ways, because I just can't live like this.
and we live in a selfish society too.
Yeah,
You know,
that don't
we
help.
Want, you know, we want to please ourselves.
That don't help.
You know, and a lot of times we don't think about other people, just in society in general, and so that bleeds over into our relationship, and that may be a trauma thing. You know, something may have happened in your past, and now you don't. You know, it's all about me. You know, I got to make sure I'm good because everybody else, ain't nobody gonna make sure I'm taken care of. So I got to focus on me, and that's it. You know, and then you get in your relationship, and that can't be the foundation for your relationship.
I saw on social media one of our past guests. She said she posted, "What is dating like these days?" Now, I'm far removed from dating at this point, but man, I just to speak to your point about the way society is now, I don't think I would want to necessarily be in a dating scene. But then again, I don't know. I feel like, you know, when you're in it, you figure out how to manage.
Right.
You know, no matter what era you grew up in, you typically figure out how to manage dating. So
I'm gonna tell you something. It's great people out here. It's great. Women,
it's always great
men out
people.
here.
Yeah,
It's great people out here. But you know, when you really start to get to a level with someone where what you're doing become intimate, the talks become intimate, you know, and you start to see more of someone, that doesn't mean that they're not great, but a lot of that trauma that they haven't addressed.
Okay.
Like we're talking about.
Okay.
You know, they still great people.
Once you
But
get deeper into it.
Once you get deeper into it, you just start seeing different things that you wouldn't have seen at the forefront, right? It's not because they faking or anything like that. You know, it's just, you know, those things start to come out over time. Now, and it's such a beautiful thing though when you find someone who is willing to work on things, you know, and who asks you questions, you know, trying to understand, okay, how can we better what we have? You know, how can I be a better person? They trying to be a better person for themselves and for you. You know, that's where that greatness sustains itself. Everybody's great in the beginning, trust me. And deep down, they probably great
doing a
people.
honeymoon stage.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Well, deep down, they probably great people, but it's like you have to be managing yourself, like, and assessing yourself, you know. And if not, then it's, you know, it's in jeopardy. Whatever you got is in jeopardy, I feel like.
I think people shy away from vulnerable moments, so they shy away from emotions, and they look at this thing to be afraid of, instead of looking at it as an opportunity to learn.
Yes.
So if it's a personal thing, you have an opportunity to learn about yourself, meaning what causes you to feel this type of emotion, or if it's a partner, what causes them to feel this or react this way. So we focus on the reaction, but we don't focus on exactly what caused the reaction. And if I can focus on and realize what caused the reaction, you ain't got to worry about the reaction because you can address the issue to begin with. So, so that could ultimately take away a lot of the arguments people have, because they focus on how the person said this to them, or how they're acting towards them. Well, let's look at why they're acting this way. What did I do to cause this? Or You know, and it might not be something you did intentionally, but how did I contribute to that? Or how can I help this person realize what they got going on? And so they can choose to react a different way. Or I say instead of reacting, respond a different way. Mm-hmm. Because reaction is based off emotions. A response is based off, you know, when you process through things and then you choose a different way to go about it.
Reactions way more immediate.
Yeah.
We want answers quick, man.
Yeah.
People want answers quick.
Yeah.
I remember back in my just over the years, you know, you develop. But I just think about looking back. You know, I always wanted to have a quick response. It was really a reaction.
Yeah.
You know, but I was calling it a quick response. I wanted to have a quick response because I thought that meant that I thought it correlated with being adequate, right? Yeah. With whatever I'm talking about, right? I know it, so I got to respond quickly, you know, or.
But it's not always.
That's just what's expected. Yeah. You know.
But it's not always the best move.
It's never hardly the best. It's never really the best move. Yeah. Reflection is always important.
Yeah.
Reflection is always important.
Yeah. As I'm listening to you guys, right? I've been married for a little minute here now. And
it's a blessing.
Yeah, it's definitely a blessing.
That's a blessing. I know you.
He thought about it, but he's like, yeah, just a little minute.
It's been a minute, but in order to get there, the stuff that we're talking about, I had to acknowledge. I had to be honest with myself. Acknowledge. I had to be vulnerable, and just those three right there: acknowledge, honesty, and vulnerability. I thought I knew what it meant to be vulnerable until I've been in a relationship for a period of time and realized I'm not being as vulnerable as I can. I had to be honest with myself to say I'm not being as vulnerable as I can. Mm-hmm. I had to acknowledge that, and then I had to commit to actually trying to be vulnerable with my wife. And hopefully if she's seeing this, she can say, yes, over the years that we've been, he's become more and more vulnerable to me. I feel it. I feel like I can give her any and every emotion that is within inside of me. She won't judge me. She'll give me the proper response. You know, not just react to me in any manner, but give me the proper response that's going to be supportive of me, encouraging for me, and just an overall present an overall aura that's going to help me become even better as a man, as a father, as a husband.
Thing.
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm. The goal is for me to reciprocate what she's given to me. Going back to one of my favorite artists, Lauryn Hill, when she talks about reciprocity. And, you know, we listening to that song, and it's like, we listening to the song, and we're like, oh, that's dope. But are we giving this in relationships? Right. Are we giving this reciprocity, and are we reciprocating what we asking people to give us? Yep. Are we giving that back, man? And, you know, sometimes, you know, the trauma that we've been through affects whether we can actually do that or not. But then that goes back again. It's almost like we just keep repeating the same words. Acknowledgement, acceptance, honesty, awareness. Like, all of these things are super critical. And when people talk about, oh, you need to go to therapy, I need that's what you're doing in therapy. And it ain't gonna always be fun. It's absolutely not gonna always be. Sometimes it's gonna be really super uncomfortable. You know, I've had people come into sessions with me and say, man, I don't like you. I don't like you. It's good though. And then, you know, they tend to come back because it's been those are the people who are actually doing the work. It's beneficial for those. Some of those who don't like me and don't come back, you know, I don't know what's happening to them right now. At this moment.
Listen, if you love somebody, be willing.
I like that.
Straight up. If you love somebody, be willing. If you love your kids, be willing to change your parenting style a little bit. If it's not working, you know, be willing to look at what's not working. Really, if you're in a relationship and you love that person, you'll be willing to change, to do introspection, right? To look in yourself, you know, and see where your behaviors, you know, are off. See where you're off. If you love somebody, you know, you'll be willing. So be willing. So, and if you're not, maybe leave that person alone. You know, maybe leave that person alone. To be honest with you.
Terance.
Yep.
Closing arguments as if we was in a
Closing
courtroom.
argument.
Closing thoughts, man.
Well, Your
well,
Honor.
before you even give us your closing arguments, your closing thoughts, will you come back and be with us again?
Yes, absolutely. I enjoy talking about, like, having these types of conversations, talking about therapy, because even as a black male, you don't see us.
Yeah, and to have three of us here,
Yeah.
discussing relationships and trauma in relationships, I would wonder, is there anybody else have done that?
You know what I'm saying?
In this manner.
And being open and honest about
Yeah,
it, even
yeah.
with personal experiences, like you said, that vulnerability piece,
Mm-hmm.
being vulnerable to show that, I don't have to be as hard all the time. Like, I get sad, I get depressed, I've had my heart broken,
Mm-hmm.
all this type of stuff. Like, people don't really verbalize that.
Yeah.
And to be able to sit down with two other, black males and be able to have this discussion, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Trying to destigmatize mental health a little bit especially in the black community, or just overall,
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely would come back.
So
Can I say something real quick?
no.
I appreciate
Nah, go ahead.
So you said something earlier too, how your trauma will bleed onto others.
Yeah.
Bleed onto others. It'll bleed into other parts of your life too,
Yeah.
even like school, work, and all that.
Exactly.
So I'm a workforce development professional, right? And when I used to work in career development, I'm more on the business side now. When I used to work in career development, like case manager individuals, like they would come in with trauma from their old jobs that they would be holding on to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, you are not gonna if I help you get a new job, you are not gonna hold up in that job. You ain't gonna hold up past 30 days.
No.
We gotta look at what soft skills you need right now.
Exactly.
Right.
It's certain hard skills that you want. You want to be a truck driver, okay, great. But you know what I'm saying? If you're gonna be showing up late, doing all the things that
Ain't
you
gonna work.
Talking, you can't work with authority. It's not gonna work, like you say. So it bleeds into other parts of your life.
Yeah.
Like for real, not just on other people, but in the other parts of your life. And I see it all the time, even with business owners and HR, your CEOs, all those people that we talk to. And I'm on the business side. If you're not understanding the negative work culture that you have going on, if you aren't healing your work culture, then you're going to continually have people in and out your doors. It's going to be a revolving door, right? You're not going to be able to keep and retain good people.
Yep.
So it just bleeds into other parts of your life, man.
I'm going to plug vocational rehabilitation based off of what you just said.
Okay.
With career development. If somebody's working with Joshua in career development and he says to them, hey, you have issues from your past work space that you can't go, obviously you're going to do some things in that moment, right? But if you recognize that they need therapy, or the individual recognizes that they need therapy, they can go to vocational rehabilitation. Why? Because those case managers there can connect you with an actual therapist. And you can work on specific skills to address address whatever you need to address, so that when you go to that next job, you're ready for it. Yeah. You're able to actually maneuver. People, it's places out here that we can get the help. You know, a lot of times we get hung up on healthcare, and I see people say mental health should be free. Maybe free to y'all, but I need to get paid in some form or fashion. But there are ways, there are systems that are actually currently in place that we're not using. I would venture to say if we add more systems, you're just not going to use those. But if that is identified, vocational rehabilitation, I believe, is in every state.
Or rehab, yeah.
So you should be able to go there and actually get the help that you need, therapy, specific therapy for people to work on skills that can translate into the vocational space.
Yeah, and vote rehab, and not just there. Like, do your research. You got Goodwill out here that's doing great work in career development. You got your local workforce development boards in every county in the United States that have funding to not only help you with those, with those soft skills, but also get in careers where you can make more money. But yeah, a lot of it, like you say, leads back to mental health. Sometimes we go through stuff at home or off the job that we bring to work.
Yep.
That trauma. So everything affects everything.
Yeah. Going back to you where you said trauma language, right?
Yep.
people have problems with authority figures, right? And you can't tell me this, you can't tell me that. I'm pretty sure that's on the trauma
like,
language.
There you go. Star that one.
Yeah. So any closing statements from you, man?
Yeah. Anytime I talk about trauma, I always like to tell people, always keep in mind it probably didn't start with you. Because a lot of times we like to blame ourselves or blame other people. And if you really kind of take that look inside, introspection, and you be like, hey, maybe it didn't start with me. Maybe it came from an earlier life experience. That could be with caregivers, early relationships. It didn't start with me, but it can end with me. So that cycle that you're passing down to, your children or passing down throughout the family, that cycle can be broken if you do the work to break it. So always remember, instead of blaming yourself, instead of blaming other people, it didn't start with you. That's actually a book, though.
That is another. You just drop another word, right?
Yeah.
You just dropping mics all over here. You said that cycle can be broken as long as you do the work.
Yep.
To address that cycle. I messed that up, but you said it. We're going to have to replay it at some point. Just clip it up and replay it. Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate you coming through. Hopefully, we can get you back on sooner than later.
Yeah.
A couple of times, actually. But we'll talk about that. But really, really appreciate you coming through and being with us. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Speaking with Gravity. I guess I need to be looking at the camera. If you find this episode insightful, be sure to subscribe and listen. Leave us a review. Put some comments in there, man. And maybe we'll be able to respond to them either in text or maybe in an episode. Take care of your mental well-being and continue to have these, continue to have these conversations. Allow this to be one of those things that's kind of open up the conversation at a dinner party or something like that. Until the next time, you can find us on multiple platforms. Joshua, do you want to share any?
At Garvey, that's Garvey, at Garvey, 4 Prez. So at Garvey, 4 Pres.
And do you got any social media that you want to share?
So Facebook is Missing Pieces Counseling Services, and on Instagram is Missing Pieces Counseling.
Okay. And then he's got a couple of speaking engagements coming up too. So just go to those. And as far as I'm concerned, if you want to be in contact with me, Gravity Counseling Group, or Speaking with Gravity or Gravity Counseling Group, you'll find me on those videos, those reels, and then you can go from there. All right, thank y'all for tuning in. You can be anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with us, and we appreciate it. This isn't therapy, it's a podcast.
All right, that's right.